Neil from Essex here to introduce you to the very first of the Kubota stand-on track loaders. This is a brand new product for Kubota and something that we're really excited about. Come along with me here today as I walk you around this machine and show you some of its features.
Essex, a helping hand with your land.
There are a lot of firsts for this machine and a lot of things that we're really excited about. Every couple of years, Kubota will come out with one of these new products, kind of expanding into a new market in a way that's done with some innovative new features and real quality and, kind of a second thought at how the industry tends to do things. And the SCL is no exception to that. We would have seen this before with the RTV utility vehicles and the ZD series diesel zero turns. There's things in these products that really set them apart from a majority of the market and enables Kubota to take this really large chunk of market share very quickly. This machine was first introduced about 2 years ago and only to a small subset of Kubota dealers and only in very limited inventory. When they trickled this thing out the very first time and information kind of came out through dealer meetings and made it to marketing websites and that kind of stuff, we sold out of our initial allocation of this machine completely in the very first day that it was made available to the public almost 2 years ago. It has taken some time to come to market, and that can be a little frustrating for us sometimes and a little frustrating for some of you that have been waiting for this thing. But we really appreciate the fact that Kubota is willing to take their time with these products, not rush them to market, and stop the shipment process when they find things that mechanically aren't necessarily up to the standard that they were going for. So we're happy to see that that's happened with this machine and really happy to be able to actually have them on our lot now. Another new first for this thing is the way that it was engineered. So Kubota tends to do a lot of engineering in the States and some engineering over in Japan as well. This was made here by a local engineering group, but the production of this is a little bit different. So traditionally, Kubota's manufacturing plants are largely in Japan or a lot of them in Georgia. This is actually being produced in the Lampride factory. So some years ago, Kubota went and purchased Lampride, and the production of this is not being handled by Kubota's traditional engineering groups. It's actually being handled by Lampride's production team. So it's a machine that's actually being made stateside here in Kansas and shipped here throughout the US. And as I expected, production ramps up and that kind of thing, you'll probably see these machines head out from there and go all over the world. If you've never seen a machine like this before, it might be hard to grasp exactly what it's for. It's for a very different customer than what our traditional track loader or tractor would be. Your general customer for this thing tends to be doing residential type work, where you're going on to finished residential properties, finished lawns and that kind of stuff. So it tends to be with those landscapers and rental yards and weekend warrior type homeowners, as well as some tree companies and companies that might do clearing and that kind of stuff in compact areas. If we know anything about Kubota equipment, it's that all the letters and numbers are always going to mean something. So this is an SCL1000. Now, SCL is going to be the family of equipment that this is. We could call it a stand-on compact loader. I don't know if that's real or not, but it sounds good. But the 1000 is going to tell us that we have a 1,000-pound rated operating capacity. Now that 1,000-pound ROC is different than the loader rating that we would typically have on a tractor. When you look at a tractor's loader spec, it's how much weight can be in that bucket when the loader goes to pick it up. In terms of this machine though, this is rated more like construction equipment is with this ROC number. So the 1,000-pound ROC is a 35% of the tip load of the machine. So the tip load is going to tell you at how much weight can you get out in front of that machine before it starts to tip over. And that number in the case of this machine is 2,800 pounds, and track type equipment is rated at 35% of its tip load. So that gives us a 1,000-pound ROC. Bottom line, this loader is going to lift just about anything that you can get out in front of it by the time the back end of this thing pops right up off the ground. It's an extremely capable piece of equipment in terms of its lift capacity and also its hydraulic capacity as well. You get a full 16 gallons a minute of hydraulic flow out these front remotes that are going to enable us to run a whole different set of equipment that you generally wouldn't have on compact tractors. So if we have to equate this thing into the tractor sphere that we're all a lot more used to, this is basically the capacity of about a 30 to 40 horsepower tractor and a vastly smaller footprint. Out on the front of the machine, between the loader and the bucket, you have this mount plate here on the front. And again, this is a little bit different plate than what you might be used to seeing on a small tractor. Well, most of the tractor industry uses a skid steer coupler, right? Two handles that you pull up with the pins that drop out the bottom. You can see this plate here is a lot smaller to kind of reflect the narrower nature of the boom of this machine. A full skid steer plate wouldn't fit between the arms. This is called a CCI, or Common Industry Interface Coupler, which is what you find on a majority of the existing machines that are out there today. There is a skid steer type coupler available for these as well. However, it's going to be called like a mini skid steer. The plate itself is still not quite as wide as what this is. It's a little bit more narrow. It has different engagement pins in the bottom, so this is not something that you can go and throw any old skid steer attachment on, even with that skid steer plate. But you're going to find some of those things where things will carry back and forth, frequently pallet forks. And you're going to know by looking at the backing plate if you see a second set of holes in the bottom where pins will drop down. That's going to be for the narrower version of the skid steer coupler, like some of these machines are going to have, particularly the ones from Bobcat. But this CCI coupler is going to be what you'll find in a majority of the machines that are out there today. For a new machine like this, a lot of us kind of learn almost along with you when we look at these things for the very first time. And one thing that we initially thought when we flipped the hood up here and looked under this thing, that there might be some serviceability challenges underneath the hood. When you get something this small and this compact, you know, oftentimes they have to go and shoehorn stuff into every little place under the hood here in order to make things fit. Our service department, though, came around and started poking around and flipping open some access hatches and stuff, and had a lot of cool things that they found that really make this thing impressively easy to get into. When we look at the machine itself, your diesel fuel fill is right up here in the front with a large tank that spans across the entire front of the machine. And then you've got a stack of filters and everything right up here above it. You'll notice a little electric fuel pump, then 2 stages of fuel filtration before you feed down to your engine. You also have a large hydraulic filter right up here in the front of the machine as well, so that's easy to get to, with a hydraulic reservoir up here right in the front. So that takes care of your fuel and hydraulic system. Your oil fills, though, are done in really the traditional place that they normally would be. You have your engine buried down here in the bottom of the machine with an access hatch over on the side that you can pop open in order to get into the oil filter in its traditional location. The engine that's in this is a D902. It's an extremely common Kubota diesel engine. In the case of this machine, generates 24.9 turbocharged horsepower. So that initially was where I thought the serviceability stopped. However, if you look down here underneath the back side of the machine, you have this large radiator and this pad that you lean against when you're operating it. But buried up here behind is a little access lever that allows this to flip open, that has your owner's manuals and stuff inside of it and gets you to the top of the radiator. But it actually can still go a step further with another little latch that's up here under the top that allows this to flip up as well. And this is impressive. You can see here that this machine is fully hydraulically controlled. The 2 sticks up here in the top are not mechanical, they're full pilot controls, just like you'd find in a compact track loader. The hydraulic valve stack for everything sits right up here in the top of the machine, so if you have a leaky hose in any of these components or the control sticks, everything is right up here in the top and very easy to get to service. Below that then is where the engine sits. Now that is down there a little bit, and I'm sure could be a little bit of a challenge to get out. But all of your common, say, failure points, or the things that tend to leak or need addressed when these things are 20 years old, are up here in actually surprisingly easy to get to locations, and gives you an appreciation too for really what is under the hood of this machine. All of these hydraulics and the pilot controls are a lot of cost, frankly, right? I mean, this is a significant piece of equipment with a significant price tag, but you can see you're getting something for your money, right? This isn't a inexpensive machine with lipstick on it. This is the real deal. I think it's really funny that this thing looks like a mini track loader, and it really shares a lot of the same DNA with that other equipment. If you notice back in here, there's some additional follower arms and stuff underneath the boom. Most existing machines that are out there today like this are going to have radial booms on them. That means they have a single pivot point at the back and have a stiff arm that goes up and down from that pivot point. That's fairly common in economy equipment and less expensive skid loader models and that kind of thing, because it's cheaper to build and easier to engineer. But it does have some drawbacks. As that boom moves at an arc, especially when it's at its higher reaches, that bucket starts to come back over top of the machine. And if you're trying to do things like load a trailer when you need to go up over the edge of something, radial lift arms are not the ideal thing to do that because you've lost your reach. This linkage down here in the bottom is the same linkage that you'll find on a compact track loader. That gives this machine a vertical lift path. So as this bucket goes up and down, you'll notice it doesn't come back over top of the machine. This boom assembly comes forward a little bit in order to keep that path of the bucket straight up and straight down. Another cool thing that's out here on the end is this little ring. This is not a D-ring for tying things down to a trailer. It's a hose guide for your hydraulic attachment. So if you have things like grapples or Harley rakes out here on the end, you could feed your hoses through this as they come up here to your coupler stack. Another thing that you'll find in that coupler stack, again, this is generally construction equipment stuff, is a case drain line. So you have your outlets up here, your flat face couplers to go to your equipment, but if you're running things that have hydraulic motors on them and have case drain lines, that's a standard equipment feature out here on the hydraulic stack. And again, something we're used to seeing in construction equipment. Another one of those things that, if we continue down this theme, is the way these tracks are tensioned in the construction of them. Kubota's got a lot of experience in building track frames on excavators and compact track loaders and that kind of stuff. You can see all that technology carry right into this. So you have all cast iron pulleys in the front and the back here. You have a single roller in the back and a double roller in the front. In most equipment, that's done in order to make the machines easy to steer. It gives you a pivot point here at the back, but the double roller in the front keeps the track running true and keeps it from throwing off of a single roller system. These tracks are also tensioned like an excavator is done. So some companies who build these machines are going to use screw systems or springs in order to try to keep their tracks tensioned. This is tensioned in the same way that a piece of construction equipment is with a grease gun. By popping off this cover right here and sticking a grease line in, you pump in a little bit of grease that pushes a cylinder internally to the track frame that keeps these things tight, just like a piece of construction equipment. If you look at this top drive sprocket up here, you have this interesting shaped cast gear, right? It has the teeth inside here in order to drive the track in this kind of interesting inverted shape that has a hydraulic pump behind it. This was one thing that did catch my eye from a maintenance perspective. If you're looking at these things for wear and tear at all, you're gonna find that obviously there's not enough room in a machine like this to put the hydraulic drive motors inboard to the machine. So they're outboard here underneath this big gear. They're fed through an access hatch over here by the hoses in order to drive them. Now this is one place that we're gonna see machines like this often cake up mud and that kind of stuff if you're using them in sloppy conditions. So you're gonna want to be mindful of keeping this area clean because of the pump and the hoses and stuff back here, and just keep the mud and the junk off of the top of the track frame. So that's a first look at the Kubota SCL1000. I'm gonna do a follow-up video here showing exactly how a machine like this runs. If you're getting onto one of these for the very first time, we'll give you an overview on the controls, how it operates, and what the operator experience is like. I've really enjoyed the time that I've got to spend on this thing. I'm far from an expert on this kind of equipment, but I'm really excited by what I've seen and how it's felt when I've been able to get out and run it. So subscribe to the channel. You'll see a lot more of this thing here over the next couple of months. If you're shopping for one of these things, or if you're looking for parts or service for a piece of equipment that you've got, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at Messick's.com. There are, okay, gee whiz. There are a lot, sorry, okay. Companies now. So this is a machine that, while it's Kubota engineered from the traditional engineering groups, I'm gonna struggle on this today. Okay. The machine first was kind of introduced to the public. This is like the fourth time that I've done this now, and it finally was going right. away from the boom where the load is the most. Okay. Rating. It's done the same way the track loaders are, where we say 35% of tip load is how that works. I need a better explanation of tip load. Okay. Good track loaders, and now I'll cover. I'm going to change how I'm doing this. Okay. Follower arms and stuff down here in the bottom. That's because unlike a majority of the machines in this class, this is a, shouldn't say it that way, okay. Come to expect and see in that kind of equipment. You'll notice here that there's some linkage at the back of the boom here. Most of these equipment, come on, okay.